Good morning, YouTube friends and family. Looks like we're back in action. We're gonna give this other screen recording app a shot and do another series of reviews on our Amazon board. I guess you could say I've kind of been out of commission here for a bit, but I think I got it squared away between dumping a whole bunch of videos, taking up space, and loading up this new application. I think we're back in action. Let's check this out, see what it does. Hopefully I can load up a few of them this morning and answer some of the requests that I've gotten. So we're looking at the LA market. One viewer asked about starting up in LA. He's contemplating getting a box truck and then stepping it up into a semi. The first thing you need to realize, if you're going to try to be active for Amazon in LA, you're actually active for Amazon in Ontario, Miraloma, Riverside area. That's Amazon's epicenter. And so if, like me, you live on the other end of LA and you're thinking you want to get active with them, you're probably going to have to consider getting a place to park your truck instead of driving your truck across LA Basin every day and eating up a couple hours of your hours of service. You're probably going to have to commute back and forth or stay in the truck like every other night out in that market. Me personally, I live in Ventura County, and when I'm going to be working LA, I do either stay out in Ontario or I got a buddy who he rents a couple spots, and if he's got a truck out of town, I drop my truck off there and then I commute home in a smaller vehicle. If you're familiar with the LA traffic, you'll understand why I'm saying that. Traffic in and out of LA, out of Ontario is difficult. So we're looking at box trucks. There's a San Bernardino team load to Salt Lake City. It's at $288 a mile. Honestly, I think a load like that is hard to fill. Most of your box trucks do not have a sleeper, and so you can't run two drivers at once. I know on your Freightliner and Internationals, if you get the crew cab version with a bed that converts, I believe that bed is big enough to qualify as a sleeper, but they're a little bit more rare. And so if you're gonna make an investment, getting the crew cab might be worth it. This load here, at $3 a mile, that's paying better than a lot of your semi-truck team operations. And I think it has part to do with there aren't a lot of team legal trucks in the 26-foot market. And so it may cost you a few more bucks and a little bit in your maneuverability, because now your 26-foot truck is going to have an additional 4-foot length to it to add that space for what would be considered a legal sleeper berth. But there's an example of where it might pay you back dividend. Anyway, so there's a load to Vegas. I looked at this earlier, and there's a ton of loads to Vegas, all at $338. And I think that was the majority of the market for now. There's a whole bunch of Vegas trips there. And as you can see, it's into next week already. I know there's more box truck market than this in the LA market. So it could be over the weekend a few will load up for Monday. But as you can see, it's all Vegas stuff. Which for $330, that's a money losing proposition if you can't find a load coming back. And so here's your 53-foot power only, 150 loads. There's Paris to Oregon. It's a team load for 266. And so you see how 266 is actually cheaper than that box truck load. There's a load to Bakersfield for 426 a mile. A team load to Aurora, Colorado for 366 a mile. A team load to Denver for 406 a mile. That's not bad money. That's some good coin right there. There's a Fontana load to West Jefferson. I'm gonna say that's Georgia, Ohio. My apologies. I was thinking Jefferson, Georgia. So there's another load to Bakersfield from Rosemead, 426 a mile. There's a load to Houston, team load for almost 5,000 bucks. There's a load to Everett, Washington, 246. There's a load to Illinois for 268 a mile. There's a load to Kansas for 236 a mile. There's another load to Kansas for 236. There's a load to the Detroit area for 276 a mile. That's not a bad pay load. I think this is the Atlanta area, out in Georgia. And so Fontana to Atlanta, a team load for 6,000 bucks, almost $3 a mile. Looks like possibly because of the weather, there's a shortage of trucks, and they're paying the team loads a little bit better than they have in the past. Boils down to supply and demand, right? So there's a load to Colorado for 366 a mile. There's another load to Atlanta for almost 6,000 bucks. There's a load to Washington, 246 a mile. There's another load out to, I believe this is like North Carolina area. South Carolina, my apologies. 276 a mile. So the team loads are definitely up compared to what they normally pay. This is much better. So there's a load to Washington for 376 a mile. There's another load at Georgia for 276 a mile. There's 366 a mile going to Washington. There's a load to Chattanooga, Tennessee for 5,800 at 276 a mile. It's not too shabby. There's a load to Houston for 327 a mile. They're hurting out there in Texas, and so they should be paying well to get stuff in there. If you were to head that way, I'm hearing that a lot of truck stops are actually out of fuel because they haven't been able to get fuel trucks in and out. And so on top of having water issues and power issues, a lot of your truck stops don't have fuel. So there's a load to Dallas, Fort Worth at 246 a mile, 3,300 bucks. There's a load to Oregon at 266. Another Oregon load at 296. 276 to Atlanta, 276 to Jefferson, Georgia. Looks like they have a lot of long hauls. I don't see any local stuff. But yeah, I think that's what's been disrupted mostly on the West Coast. As you can see, this is all long haul stuff. And I think some of you guys are thinking you want to run little short come home every night loads. Because as we look at this, everything's pretty well long haul. Let me see if I can filter this differently. So here's some round trips. I kind of eliminated the one-way stuff because most of it seemed to go cross country, and I get the feeling when you guys are asking for power only, you're thinking you jump in your truck, you go and move a couple trailers, you come home at night. Not everybody's cut out for over the road. It's kind of a whole different world. So here's Rialto back to Rialto. It's a one-day deal for $581. That's cheap for a whole day's truck. Here's a round trip, or a tour as Amazon calls it. It's a 3-day tour. Pays $191 per mile. So it's $4,000 in 3 days for 2,000 miles. There's a 3-day load. You'll do 3,700 miles for $5,400. It's a team load. Here's another, this is a day and 6 hours for $1,400. I think that's still a little bit on the cheap side, personally. Here's a 1-day load, $492 at $2 a mile. It's not bad on the mileage wise, but I think for a whole day's work, $500, I just think that's a little cheap. I kind of want my trucks to do about $1,000 a day. So here's a 600-mile trip, a day and 7 hours. You make $1,200. There's 162 miles. According to them, you'll take the whole day to do it for $300. There's a day and 5 hours. $450. I'm sorry, 450 miles for $1,000. From a mileage standpoint, that's not bad at all. But the fact that it's going to take you a day and 5 hours, $1,000 is just cheap in my opinion. I mean, especially if you live in LA somewhere. So here's a 4-day tour. Actually, it's a 5-day because there's 4 days and 8 hours. You make $5,000, and it's just under $2 a mile. The mileage is a little on the cheap side, but that hits my ideal mark of $1,000 a day. I think if there was even 15-20 cents more per mile, that wouldn't be a bad load. There's an 807-mile tour. It's paying $1.50 a mile. Yeah, it's not hardly worth it. 956 miles in 2 days for 1,400 bucks. There's 878 miles, a day and 4 hours for 1,700. You know, that's not a bad deal. That's a little closer to what I would want, and the mileage isn't as bad either. So there's 600-mile tour, $1.51 a mile. And it says 15 hours, which there's got to be a timing issue there somewhere. There's 570 miles, a day and 6 hours at $1.95. There's 106 miles. It'll take you 8 hours to do this tour for 300 bucks. Pretty cheap. There's 900-mile tour. It'll take you 2 days to do for 1,300 bucks at $1.40 a mile. There's a team tour, 4 days, 4,100 miles for 7,800 bucks. I know people that do these, and they seem to think they're making good money. I think if one of the two drivers is an owner-operator, it may not be bad, but I don't know. I think if you pay two drivers and you're not the owner in the truck, you know, you're going to lose you're going to pay 30% more or less out to the drivers. And then you got fuel cost, plus wear and tear on the truck, plus the expense of the truck, plus insurance. I don't think there's a lot of meat left on that bone at $1.87 a mile. So here's another tour. This one's a 2,000-mile tour, 4 days, for 3,800 bucks. I just don't think those are worth it. Here's a 4-day tour, 2,300 miles for 4,300 bucks. Here's a 460-mile tour, 1 day for $674 at $1.44 a mile. And these are just pretty cheap. There's $1.77 a mile for a 2,000-mile tour. It'll take you 4 days and you make 3,400 bucks. To give you guys an idea, the last couple loads I've pulled have been, I pick up one afternoon, I drop off the next afternoon, and I'm making about 2,000 bucks. I do have my own trailer, so I rent a trailer for 500 bucks a month, but I'm making twice what these Amazon loads pay. Now, granted, you know, it's over the road. You won't find those loads stay in California only. California's market's pretty saturated. And because California's market is saturated, and most of your freight is outbound. By that I mean it leaves the California market, and California's kind of isolated. You know, the Arizona desert doesn't have a whole lot of cities there, so you either go long haul out of California and go cross country, or you stay in California. And since a lot of carriers decide they want to stay and be home every night, they're willing to do these loads cheaper. So if you want better bang for your buck, you kind of have to go over the road. So you'll take a long haul out of California for, you know, $4,000 to $6,000. When the market's better, that could be upwards of $12,000. And then once you're on the East Coast, loads between the Northeast and the South, or the Midwest to Northeast, you know, all of those loads pay much, much better. And so my philosophy is come out this way, spend a week or two running these 500 to 800 mile loads, for $2,000, and then, come home, spend time with the family, maybe do a couple short hauls in California, and then head back out. That's kind of my philosophy, and my average ends up being pretty good. And so here's, a $1.76. These are blocks. So these are 2-day blocks for $1,600, $1,500, $1,500. Now, when you look at these blocks, we don't have a whole lot of tolls in California, but they're still going to add what they call accessorials, and so your fuel surcharge is what they're talking about for Southern California. So there may be another $150 to $200. I don't know their math on fuel surcharge. I think it is different from area to area. So this 1582 might be like $1,700 for what they call a solo 2 driver. I've never done one. I have the curiosity, and the thing of it is, if you book this, you won't know until, like, this loads Monday at 3 in the afternoon. That's when you start, and you won't be done till Wednesday at 6 in the morning. But you won't know till like Sunday night, Monday morning what your route's going to be. You'll receive it in your application, and it's not until that point that you know where they're sending you. And so you could have, a relatively easy run, go to Vegas, do a couple moves in Vegas, come back. You could go to Phoenix, do a couple moves in Phoenix, come back. Or you could go to Oregon and come back. It's up to their discretion. Some people like these blocks because once you book one, you're kind of guaranteed work. And the beauty is, if they don't use you, you still get paid. And so there's $1.56 for 2 hours and 4 days, $2,200 for 1,400 miles. That's pretty cheap. And so this is getting into Monday, which is, it's going to make them much cheaper because it's far out. But that should give you an idea of what the LA market's like. I did recently get my Uber account active. The account's been active, but what wasn't active was my application. Not really sure why. It just wouldn't let me log in. We'd been working with the broker directly and getting some decent loads. And so, since I haven't really shown you guys Uber, figured I'd throw this out there. So there's a load going to El Paso, Texas for $274 a mile, $22.75. Granted, these are van loads where you have to provide your own trailer, but that's not bad money going to El Paso. There's 257 on the miles going to Dallas, Texas, $36.90. There's a load going to Shirts, which is basically right there. I believe that's also in Dallas. I've been there, but I forget sometimes the city names. No, that's actually down towards San Antonio. Nonetheless, oh, and it's going to an Amazon location. That's kind of funny. So yeah, this is a brokered load going to Amazon. So ABC Lucky Inc. out of Pico Rivera has a load going to Sat 1, which is San Antonio 1. Oh, and it's heavy. It's 45,000 pounds, which is rare for an Amazon load. Oh, and I guess the other thing this application does is it shows you local reloads. And so you could you could book one and then book the next, and that way you're kind of guaranteed what your trip is going to be. So I do kind of like that about this app. Anyway, so there's a load to Portland, Oregon for $3.19 a mile. Salt Lake City, Utah for $3.55. Eugene, Oregon for $3.09. Lakewood, Washington for $3.20. Another one for $3.17. Anyways, I just figured I'd show you guys this so you could see there's different options. There's a one pick, two drop. Those do tend to pay a little better. If you ever see those, you know, as long as they don't make you do one drop one day, another drop another day, and another drop another day, these tend to pay better on a daily basis. I'm sorry, on a mileage basis. So you can see this is $3.59 a mile, leaving Maricopa, which isn't exactly LA, but for $4,000, you know, that's not too bad. You leave on the 20th, you're done on the 23rd. That, in my mind, hits that $1,000 a day mark. Plus, you're getting $3.59 a mile. That's not bad money. Anyways, if you guys have interest in looking at more of these types of loads, let me know and I'll throw that up there. I'm going to wrap this video up with just the LA market and then do separate videos for some of the other markets. As always, thanks for watching.